We have a good show today, don't I always? Yeah, it's Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-City sports fans. And the name of the program is Tri-City Sports Now, where we own the Tri-Cities on 1420 WEMB Sports Radio. We also, what else do we do here? We can also be heard on jetbroadcasting.live online. So take us with you, on your iPhone, on your Android phone. I mean, it's www.jetbroadcasting.live. Come on. The other thing is, sometimes you miss a show or sometimes you're in front of your computer, and let's face it, who can resist looking at this handsome face of mine? And well-dressed man as well. So, here we go. I will be on Facebook Live. We broadcast this show on Facebook Live. You can watch it live. Just like 1420 WEMB Sports Radio. Follow us and it comes on and you'll be able to hear what I have to say. But if you can't watch the show live, you're out and about. I do realize, although I do think that, yes, quite frankly, the world should shut down from noon to 2 to listen to me. But the world, by the way, if they don't speak my language, learn it. All right? I don't think I asked for too much when I say that. So one of the things that we do is that you can watch it on archive. And we've been getting a lot of hits lately. A lot of times I share it with the people that really like it. Just this morning, for instance, it took me forever to slug some of the shows. But shared it, my takes on Will Muschamp's comments during the SEC Media Days, when someone asked him, hey, are the Gamecocks little brother to Clemson? And I really think he struck out when he just said, no, we're not. Well, tell us why. Because I can come up with 5 reasons off the top of my head, as successful as Clemson has been, that it's not. It's this is a 5-year trend. Now, that might not make Muschamp look good. But what about, hey, we're in the state capital here. They're next to an Esso station. Haven't they heard? It's Exxon. There's all sorts of things that they can do with that. We're in the SEC. They're in the ACC. Give me a break, Or the state school. Who's Clemson? There are all sorts of things that you can do championing the overall athletic program and saying, so it's just not that far beyond for us to win the national title. Now then, that'll light up everybody. But you know what? It'll also, as much as it lights up, people's faces and interest and all that, tells you you're ready to win. Or that you're not playing to be little brother. He said none of these things. Well, shared that, the right Facebook page, and all of a sudden, people are commenting, people are liking it. Why don't you comment too? Because I know a lot of Tennessee fans are going to want to comment on Marky's monologue today, which is why the Vols are so consistently overrated. But I am going to also talk to Caleb Calhoun of All for Tennessee. It's Asian House Vols Talk with Caleb Calhoun. That'll be at 12:30. And then at 1:30, normally I have him on Monday, but he was at SoCon Media Days, so we have him on Tuesday instead, not Thursday. Tuesday at SoCon John Hooper, and he'll tell us what he saw at SoCon Media Days. The Wofford Terriers, my selection. They were the pick to win the SoCon for, I guess it would be the 4th straight year. Followed by Furman and then good old ETSU. Trying desperately not to be the SOBs, the same old Bucks. But what about the SOVs, same old Vols? Why are they so consistently overrated? I think it has to do with the media in this area, and by that I mean East Tennessee. And really, all of it. Now, there are exceptions. Not every last person is this way, and I'm not suggesting it is, but so many are. People who view their position as a member of the sports media, not as a journalist, but rather an extension of the public relations department. Now, I know media gets a lot of hits these days, and I'm going to contribute to it now. And, political media is so divided. Absolutely so divided. But I'll just give you this. Earlier this month, Barrett Sally wrote a piece that the Tennessee Volunteers are the consistently most overrated team in the Southeastern Conference. And the criteria he used is he went back to 7 years, the preseason SEC Media Days media rankings. And he found out that in terms of predicted order of finish and order of finish, Tennessee was, by that criteria, the most overrated team in the SEC. It surprises me not at all. Because you still have people 12 years after the last division title, and really, it's not going to happen this year, 21 years after the last SEC title, and they still think that, yeah, Tennessee is this elite program. Read Wes Rucker. Right, it's only a program with the history of Tennessee, can't stay down. Now, do I think that they will forever have losing records? No. I mean, even Vanderbilt had a winning record after, well, it took them 25 years, but, But I'm not so sure now Vandy doesn't have a better athletic program than Tennessee. Hey, they're the national champs in baseball. They've defeated the Volunteers 5 out of 7 years on the gridiron. Basketball, Tennessee clearly superior. But I will tell you that when it came down to hiring an athletic director, Vandy went out and got the G League president. Tennessee went out and hired the old coach. Which one is more forward thinking? That's all I'm asking. And so when you look at the predictions, the Vols, give me an example, 2016. That was a year Tennessee was supposed to come back and win the SEC East. And they finished, well, they didn't. Florida won it. I've often talked about how I think that the rivals, they still have Scout. Used to have Scout. The rivals, the 24/7 rankings, those are a little bit, not a little bit, they're often, they don't mean a whole lot. Derek Dooley's worst recruiting class was 17th in the country. How'd that work out? Butch Jones, the seniors that last year, should have finished 5th in the country if you went by recruiting rankings, went 5 and 7. Some of them transferred away, we get that, but, still. You look at this, and Tennessee still is thought to be, they'll finish ahead of these programs. Now, the second most overrated program in the SEC was South Carolina. And remember, I tell you, Carolina and Tennessee, they're kind of linked together in my mind, maybe with Missouri as well. This is the 3 to 5 school, and, got to beat out the other two to make that bold try at Florida and Georgia. That's the way that I see the SEC ranking, and of course Kentucky and Vanderbilt, well, they're along for the ride, but they're not really built to win the division, or at least they weren't for a long time. Again, we're, talking about brand name now, right? And not so much what's gone on recently, maybe not necessarily the future. Anyway, let me just give you an example of the kid gloves treatment. I think one of the reasons why Tennessee is overrated by these rankings consistently in the preseason. By the way, I don't think they're overrated this year. Picked to finish 5th. Sounds about right. Okay, we'll talk to Caleb Calhoun, all for Tennessee, about that. But here's the thing. Check out Media Days. Remember the questions. What did I debut the show with? Will Muschamp, are you little brother to Clemson? That's a tough question. It's challenging. I think you whiffed on it. I think it's that high fastball that you can belt out of the park if you got enough bat speed. And he didn't do it. He swung on and missed. Meanwhile, what does Jeremy Pruitt get? Batting practice. The UAB game. Will you tell us about the UAB game? Is going to be played when? November? It's so far in advance, and I understand it's an Alabama sports writer. He's trying to gather quotes for when the game is out there. He may not get a chance to talk to Jeremy Pruitt. I totally understand it, but it's not that challenging of a question. Or how about, tell us about the executive assistant. Wasn't she your, athletic director when you were a high school coach at Hoover High School? It's a good story, don't get me wrong. It's one nobody's going to probably read in the paper. AD at Hoover High School now assisting Jeremy Pruitt when Pruitt used to work for her. I get it. Don't get me wrong. It's good journalism. It's not a challenging question, though. Compare what Muschamp got to what Pruitt got. Pruitt got softballs. And I believe that Tennessee's relationship with the media is like that of a spoiled child with little motivation to improve lackluster grades or bad behavior. The advantages the Vols once had against their competition are no longer as prevalent. Yet instead of addressing them, which I do, pat myself on the back there, but how many in the media covering the Vols insist that the advantages are still there because they always were, and they don't really address the demise of the last 12 years? South Carolina's lost 5 straight to Clemson, but you look at the last 7 years, it's 2-5. Same record last 7 years Tennessee has against Vandy. This has never happened before, at least not since the 20s. And you're like, okay, so does that mean that Tennessee is little brother to Vandy? Well, what about this? Is Tennessee little brother to Will Muschamp? He's 7-0 against the Vols' lifetime. What about Alabama? They've beaten Tennessee 12 straight times. What about Florida? They have defeated the Volunteers in 13 of the last 14 games. Tennessee even has a 2-5 record against the Missouri Tigers. South Carolina, same amount of time, 5-2. So again, against Missouri last 7 years. Tennessee 2-5, Carolina 5-2. So what does that make the Vols? Little sister? You sort of want to play Night Ranger. No, that was Sister Christian. Okay, yeah. It was a fine song. No, I've never seen Boogie Nights. I know I'm behind the times on that, but not a fan really of Wahlberg. Further examples. Let me give you further examples of the lack of accurate coverage that Tennessee gets that other schools don't receive. And I think it is proven by the consistent overrating that Barrett Sally had uncovered about 11 days ago or so. Peyton Manning didn't lose the Heisman Trophy because he played poorly against South Carolina and Vanderbilt back in 97. No. It was because there was a conspiracy out to get him. John Gruden, he's just dying to coach Tennessee Volunteers. Why? Well, 30 years ago, he was a grad assistant there. How about the fans rioting when Lane Kiffin went to Southern California? My favorite, and when I do Media Watch, I'm not a big fan of the radio show down in Knoxville, the Swain event. I just think that they're ridiculous homers, and they basically admit it. But I remember listening, I said, what are they going to say when A.J. Johnson beat his rape charge? What are they going to say about it? And you would have thought that, Nelson Mandela had been coming out of prison after 27 years of, wrongful imprisonment. You had fans calling up and predicting he'd make the Pro Football Hall of Fame. One of the assistants there was discussing how great this person beat a rape charge, okay? And if you look at the testimony, that's what happened. Yes. Johnson and his girlfriend, and I know of no other way to say this, but they were having sex, and one of his teammates moved in. That's what happened. So, well, if it's not rape, the guy is kinky. Okay? And all right. Doesn't affect how he is as a football player, I get that, and it was said by this court of law that being kinky is not, at least in this particular incident, a crime, But boy, you want to talk about bending over backwards when you start defending his character because of the uniform number he took. That showed he had character, the uniform number he took. I couldn't believe some of the things. This wasn't even the earth is flat. At least I can show, well, on this particular farm plane, yes, the earth is flat. This is just insanity that was going out. By the way, Johnson played one game with the Denver Broncos last year, didn't make a tackle. But he's going to make a Hall of Fame. That's the mentality of some Tennessee fans, and I think it's why the program becomes so overrated. Vols can do no wrong. That is a trickle down. Oh, let's pick them to finish second when they should be picked to finish fourth. That sort of thing. Last year, I really had a field day picking on the one, it was Jeremy Pruitt's first camp. He says, I'm not going to let you talk to the coordinators. He limits media access. There are actually some people in the media who said, oh, it's good to have one voice. And then you got stories not about the quarterback competition between Jarrett Guarantano and Keller Christ, but stories like, Vols have good day in church. I wonder what Arian Foster thought about that. I mean, it then allows you to think about the mindset and the mentality around here where Butch Jones is able to ask at a press conference, what do we want from our media? It's not his call. He's not the editor of the News Sentinel. He's the coach of the Volunteers. By the way, if you're wondering what the most underrated football program in the SEC has been, according to the last 7 years, preseason rankings versus the actual finish in the standings, Mississippi State. They were the top team in the country for a period of time, 5 years ago, ranked number 1. But they do struggle to escape the shadow of Alabama. There's no question about that. Starkville and Tuscaloosa are not far apart. And yeah, Alabama historically has been up here, and Mississippi State, well, when is baseball season getting around? I mean, that's what it's been historically. If you're wondering what the next overrated teams were, in order, Kentucky, Missouri, Vandy, and Texas A&M. Now, Kentucky and Vandy, okay, we can understand why they're underrated. They're traditional losers in football that have become respectable in recent years. And competitive. Kentucky was 10-3 last year. They beat Penn State in a New Year's Day bowl game. Come on. I think without Josh Allen, they may struggle this year, but then again, who knows? One guy picked them, I think, to win. Did one guy pick them to win the SEC? I think there was one guy who picked them to win the SEC. I double checked that, but yeah, same as Tennessee, same as South Carolina, which might be Jake Bentley's biggest fan. I don't know. Now the other two are Missouri and Texas A&M, and that sort of speaks up for traditional SEC media that's voting on the poll. Okay, here comes Texas A&M coming into the conference. Here comes Missouri, who wins, the division in 2 years, and it is kind of a hey, show us what you got. Because I don't know if anybody really thought that Missouri was going to come into the SEC and then start, winning as much as they have in football. I think they're a dark horse in the SEC this year, especially if Bryant gets the protection that I think he will behind center. And also, if the probation is lifted, they're appealing it. We'll find out in the coming weeks. I wouldn't be so surprised if they would be a surprise even with the probation, because I really don't think, it'll be so disappointing because Missouri won't be able to win the national championship, but you really think Missouri is going to win the national championship? But the division, I'm not picking them to beat out Georgia, but I'm not saying that it's outside of the realm of possibility, because I do think that Missouri could be very good this year. And 10 victories, that sort of thing overall. Yeah, I could see that very easily. And I don't think that Missouri is going to be motivated for bowl games, because players just aren't motivated for bowl games anymore. They sit them out. What is it? 10,000 people show up in Shreveport to see a game that is meaningless. What is that? So, you can't go to a bowl game this year? Okay, fine. It's not going to affect the players. Oh, good. We get to go home for Christmas. That's what, I get to study more for my finals. Thank goodness. I mean, that's basically pans out, Missouri journalism is kind of tough. Although, this disappointed me. No journalism majors on the Missouri Tigers football team. That has bothered me very much. I wish that was not the case. Anyway, but no, why would Missouri and Texas A&M be overrated in the polls? Because the media covering the SEC for many years, you think a Stan Torgeson type is going to really, oh yes, Texas A&M, they're going to come in and start doing so well. I mean, no, it is a show us what you got. That's the mentality. Here's the thing. If there was a little more of that mentality around the Tennessee Volunteers and not, oh, you showed us what you had in the 20th century, and a failure to realize that it's 2019, I think the Tennessee Volunteers would actually be in a better boat, and they'd be in a better vote, not so overrated, because then there would be more realism and there would be more truth. I'm Marky Billson. I'm talking to Caleb Calhoun, an Asian House Vols Talk with Caleb Calhoun at the bottom of the hour on this. Tri-City Sports Now continues after these words from our sponsor.
It will when you refund.